And welcome to the second semi-final of the Fermin Masters, the chess event that has to fill in for the traditional bull running that's usually held at this time of year in the Spanish city of Pamplona, where Magnus Carlsen is. The event is played online, but Magnus is in Pamplona. He will play his match against Wesley. So I guess from this Ernest Hemingway suite, where Hemingway wrote his book about the bullfighting, and Magnus Carlsen, not exactly fighting a bull, but very much one of the strongest players in the business. Magnus playing Wesley, so will be another blitz match between arguably, very arguably, I was going to say the two best blitz players in the world. I'm not sure if that's true at all. We've had this debate earlier in the semifinal. Many names come to mind, but certainly in rapid chess in the Champions Chess Tour, Carlsen and So have been the two dominant figures over the last year. So this is a big match, big semifinal. Levon Aronian won the other semifinal against Ding Liren and is now resting, getting ready for the finals. That will also happen today in roughly 3 hours. The semifinal will begin any minute. And maybe let's have a look at the tournament tree to see what got us here and what's still to come. Magnus, not the easiest of matches in the quarterfinals against Iturisaga. Was lost a couple times, but came through in the end. While Wesley So just crushed Le Quanglian, who's also not exactly a beginner. Just goes to show how tough Wesley has become at all formats, online and otherwise. So the game should start any minute, 4 p.m. my time. First player to 4.5 points wins. Blitz games, 3 minutes plus 2 seconds. In case of a 5-5 tie. Does that make sense? Yeah. So let's say it's 4-4. And 2 draws. In case of a 5-5 tie. There are 2 more games, and then if it's 6-6, they shall play some Armageddon. I'm good to go. Let's see if we get players, chessboards, the usual stuff. Although my best guess is we get nothing. Who's later? Magnus? Wesley? Both? The Fermin Masters. With, two very, very tough semifinals. Magnus versus Wesley and live on versus Ding. There's a bit of chess competition today, you could argue, but this is as good as it gets. Here we are. We have liftoff. Game number 1. E4, E5, knight f3. Knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. I can't see the board yet. Can you guys? And if you can, why can't I? Those are the questions I have. Anyway, I'll just assume that you can see it. I'm not sure why I cannot. But here we are. The Italian is being played. Pawn to a5. The so-called gioco piano, gioco pianissimo. Ah, now I got it. Thank you. Here's the show for me as well. Magnus Carlsen, probably not thinking he can crush one of the best prepared players in the world in the opening, Wesley. So just go for a very slow setup with his bishop to c2, pawn to d5, queen to e2. Computer not happy with Magnus's play, saying knight g4 here, targeting this pawn, and black already putting a bit of pressure. But Wesley goes a4. Oh, Magnus could take the time to maybe stop that with pawn to h3 if he chose to do so. Could also try to open the position in the center. That's what he does. He takes d5. Still keeping his options open. And the center. Bishop takes. You cannot take this pawn yet. Typical tactic. Takes, queen e5, bishop f2, knight g4 check. So Magnus just choose to develop a piece, bishop to e3. Didn't get anything out of the opening, but we're just getting started. Quite some background there for Magnus Carlsen from the Hemingway suite. I forgot what the hotel was called, the hotel in Pamplona that he's based. Looks nice. A little understated. Beautiful. Knight 3, bishop e6. The bishops got traded. Position is sort of stable now. White should throw in a3. Yeah, and he does, so he never has to worry about that pawn. Then bring the rook to the middle, and then dream about playing pawn to d4. One day. Nothing special, but compared to the trouble he was in earlier when Wesley could have gone knight g4, this looks like a pretty good outcome for the world champion here with the white pieces against, at the very least, online, his greatest rival recently, probably. In his head, or most of his headspace will be consumed by Jan Nepomniachtchi, who's his rival in the up-and-coming World Championship match in November in Dubai. But online, Wesley So has been a consistently strong foe for the world champion. He goes d4, knight takes e3, now pawn takes or queen takes. Seemed to give white a nice position. And queen to d3, Zwischenzug. He's threatening queen h7 check. And after g6, he does not recapture on d4, but goes after the b5 pawn, arguing, you know what? There's a pin on the d file. I'll pick up this pawn and see if you manage to save any of your material. Bishop g4, trying to pin the knight, but white can unpin by takes followed by rook e1, which should still give him a bit of an edge, as far as I can tell. Carlsen thinking, both players very evenly matched on the clock. Yeah, here we are, rook to e1 played. Queen c8. Computer actually didn't like rook e1, says it's equal now, because now after knight takes d4, cd, there's queen takes c2. The queen on c8 does a great job covering everything. It's just, yeah, just so strong. Wesley with these short tactics. And you can tell Magnus missed his move, queen c8. doesn't look thrilled. Well, Wesley, I don't know if he looks thrilled, but he does have things under control here. Queen c8. Quite a move, Magnus here now. Has to eat a bit of humble pie here, go bishop e4 or something along these lines. Try to keep in the position equal, I guess. Knight d2 played, trying to jump around. Wysox is asking, why isn't a4 dropping? Looks very dangerous to get the bishop side tracked here. Black would capture on f3, then capture on c3, then activate the rook a5, rook g5. No, you can't take on a4. Like long term, it's a weakness, but short term, no way you could let bishop f3 happen there. DC played and knight e4. Magnus not even covering the pawn. What's going on if we take here? He just wants to recapture and then say, long diagonal, my friend. At least that's my guess. Very dynamic solution by Magnus Carlsen here. Wesley goes bishop to f5, pawn takes c3. Now he could get rid of this knight before it gives any unpleasant checks. But he doesn't. Allows the check. Wesley is saying, check please. And Magnus obliges. Just looks winning for white now. Tiniest of head shakes from Mr. So. Rook a5. Trying to fight back with more tactics. Magnus still has to find the finish. Goes queen b2, rook f5, c4. Very quiet. The computer says it maintains the winning position. Threat was rook e8 check. Knight e5, but knight d5. Computer not a fan. Queen takes c4, knight e3, and now there's queen e4. Whoa. Pinning the rook, and Wesley is back in business. So sharp, these people. Queen c3, rook g5. All of a sudden, Wesley's a pawn up, and anything could happen. King h1. Drama. King g8. Wesley really leaning into the camera and the position. This would be considered rude if you were playing over the board. His head would be like on Magnus's second rank. But online, you can lean in as much as you want. I would assume Wesley is not much of a terror squad fan. So he probably doesn't want to lean back. What's going on now? Rook b5, rook e1. And did he blunder this? Because now it seems like white is back in the driver's seat. Queen c1. Yeah, queen c1 played, and if the queen leaves, this king should end up getting caught. Can't cover e8 and f6 at the same time, as far as I, and more importantly, the engine can tell. This is it. Drama. Knight e7, but white takes the king. Has a luft on h2. And Magnus Carlsen wins the first game. Wesley's seen enough. Leaves instantly. And wow, he takes a different chair. Not wearing long pants, Wesley, so. But he's pulling a Grishuk, getting a kid's chair for game number 2. Oof. And here we are. Pawn to d4. Wesley so freshly chaired. Goes for the Queen's Gambit. Carlsen choosing the Slav. e3. Many options now. Bishop f5, bishop g4, e6. Where champion goes bishop g4. Opts for the pin. And plays the most simplistic setup here. Gives up the bishop. Puts his pawns on light squares. This line was fashionable like 12, 13 years ago. fell a bit out of fashion then. I think people just concluded that the white two bishops had to be worth something. But it's not a bad blitz line, because the position is arguably easier to play. For black, CD, ED would give Magnus his beloved Carlsen structure. My guess is Wesley wants to do something aggressive like G4, H4, because here we played slowly, like castles, rook E8, queen E7, knight E4. Black should just be fine. So let's see if Magnus is gonna castle into it. He's gonna say, show me the money. Or if he will wait for Wesley to commit his king to either side. No, he castles. And Wesley also castles, not in the mood for any G4 shenanigans. But now black just has a decent position. Let's mention rook E8, queen E7, B4, you go A6. Try to put a knight in the middle. This bishop can regroup to D6. It's perfectly fine for black. Starts with A6, just making sure B4, A4, B5 would take forever. Rook C1, rook E8. Looks normal, but what do I know? Here comes the rook. Pawn to B4 anyway. But now there's this typical plan B5, knight B6, knight C4. I'm not sure if you do it directly, or if you maybe wait a move rook C8, but then A4, B5. Yeah, he plays B5. Magnus knows it's Carlsen, but this knight, should it enter C4, typically, solves all of black's problems on the queen side. White is not in time here to stop it. If knight E2, rook C8, the knight will still come. Carlsen once again showing this is a structure he understands extremely well. Can't mess with him in the Carlsbad. I don't know what Carlsbad is. I guess it's a town in the Czech Republic where they had some famed tournaments. I could be wrong about the Czech Republic. E5 is suggested in the chat. I'm assuming you mean E4. There would be a typical reaction indeed. But after E4, black can go knight B6 anyway, then E5 move the knight, or he could just take everything. So I don't think it's that tempting here. Wesley goes knight E2, for Magnus rook C8 would be the typical way to play here. Covers the pawn. Now after A4, you go knight B6. There's no stopping the horsey from making it to C4. Sloppy Foreskin, beautiful username, is saying, so Jan does read the chat, always. Knight C4, bishop E1, knight E4. Magnus doing fine. Look at these knights. Knight C3. And the knights coordinate in a very nice manner. Bishop H6, hinting at sacrifices. On E3. Rook A7, trying to keep black sort of busy by also putting some pressure on F7. By Rook C7, the pressure is easily dismantled. Even though engines might say this is equal, maybe they no longer do. Yeah, these positions are very, very dangerous for white. Long term, if there's no play on the queen side, this knight is super active. White typically ends up under some pressure on the king side. Pekko H, man of chess culture, saying reminiscent of Nikolic Kramnik. Exactly, those are the classics. Nikolic Kramnik, Portish Kasparov. I forgot who this Petrosian game was against. But yeah, this is a dangerous situation. And Magnus goes for broke with knight takes E3. Maybe it's not even going for broke. Maybe it's just breaking through. Because after F takes E3, Rook takes E3. a lot of things are falling. Queen f1, queen takes d4. So Wesley can't really recapture rook e2, but once again, queen d4 just seems to target lots of stuff. This knight could also just move, but yeah, he goes for the takes. The hot takes is what he goes for. Just winning. 2 pawns up, active pieces. Another clinic in the Carlsen structure. He's so good at these structures that Wesley really shouldn't give him this position after cd5, ed5, and Wesley so resigns here. Just got outplayed from this point on, which means the world champion up 2-0. Is Wesley going to go for another chair change? Carlsen, inspired apparently by his surroundings, by his Hemingway suite, or Hemming, as he likes to call him. And here we are, the Rue Lopez. Rook e1, b5, bishop b3, castles. Wesley so, of course. Can't play all the openings. Knows the stuff. Let's see if after c3 he will play the marshal. Pawn to t5. But I would guess Magnus is not going to allow it. It's going to play d3, a4, h3. One move of these. We shall see. Hamza Cook is saying, what tournament is this? This is the San Fermin Mundial. San Fermin. In Pamplona is the annual festivities there that typically involve things like bull running. Since that was not happening this year, they thought, what's the closest thing to bull running? It's obviously chess. And here we are hosting a tournament with some of the world's best players. Magnus Carlsen is on site in Pamplona. Wesley so, the other participants playing from home. And yeah, this is the semifinals. Levan Aronian won the other semifinals against Dingley and is waiting in the finals. And Magnus Carlsen so far looks well on his way to join him there, up 2-0. But I've proclaimed Magnus winning against Wesley too soon, many a time. Wesley tends to have a way to make it back into these matches. Yeah, the finals also today, 7 p.m. Pawn to d4 looks like a natural enough move. Wesley went knight a7, tending to go c5, gaining some control over the center. Carlsen says, not going to be able to do it. I'll play d4 before you go c5. And once again, nice position for the world champion. So far, seems to be cruising. Knight e4, rook e4, d5, Wesley. Going for a tactical solution, but Magnus was ready for it with rook takes e6. Now, f takes e6, bishop takes c4. Looks horrible. So he goes c takes b3. And that was very fast. Rook takes a6. Why is a pawn up? I can't count. bc, queen c2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, looks like white is a pawn up with a good solution, with a good position. Seems like chess is coming home. S is my daughter. Hi, Nelly. Nee, ich muss noch ein bisschen arbeiten.
Mama will für mich Prinzessinenbilder ausdrücken.
Ich verstehe, aber ich kann gerade nicht. Ich muss noch so eine Stunde oder so das hier kommentieren, dann komme ich. We're having a debate, if I can. Go upstairs, look after my son, Nelly's little brother, so she can print out pictures of princesses. I'm saying, not going to be able to do it. I have to watch this exciting chess match. But she does not seem to agree with my my reasoning. Ich habe nur übersetzt, was ich gesagt habe. Queen D5, C5. Magnus still in control. Takes bishop E3, somewhat weakening, but probably not much of an issue. Rook B6, nice little trick. Can't take the queen because of the back rank mate. And more trickery from Magnus, feeling himself a little bit. Mr. Zwischenzug, never moving the queen, just saying, you know what, I'll keep making intermediate moves until someone cries. Rook D7, this is just waiting for white. H6, Wesley wisely makes a luft, but knight D4, let's say. Or also just H3 or H4. Quite a display. Wo denn? Ja, ich weiß, ich habe es gesehen. Nicht damit spielen, sonst fällt das gleich alles um. Carlsen goes knight D4, rook C1 and rook takes A5, trying to regain a pawn, but the world champion has it all figured out. Goes rook to C6. If takes, knight takes, and the rook is hanging, the knight is hanging. There's just no way to save the game. And Wesley resigns after rook C6. 3-0, quite a performance. Magnus having a sip of water. And ready for game number 4. Who would have thought? $3-0 like Italy tonight, according to Nerd Nation 123. We shall see. Carlsen switching to the Caro-Can. Not sure if this was the game plan all along, or if he's just saying, you know what, up 3-0, things are good, so why not play a little Caro? It's my co-host, David Salazar. Short castles. Carlsen typically plays somewhat slower systems in this Caro-Can. He likes like H7, H6, 97, Bishop H7. Not going for immediate tension in the center. Knight B3, A5, A4. And yeah. I think Ali Reza, the new Frenchman, has also played similar setups with the black pieces. The computer is a fan of white's chances here, but these positions aren't easy to play. The computer rates white's space very, very highly. Over the board in the blitz game, though, against a world champion in shape. Probably not too thrilled here. Bishop D2, keeping an eye on the pawn. Queen 1, and then C2 drops. Rook C1, covering C2, so you can play Queen E1. F5. Bishop D3, Bishop B4. This looks like it's solving black's immediate problems. Now at least the pawn won't get taken. And if C3, the bishop retreats. There's no more pressure on A5. Well, after the exchange of bishops, I don't like this move. Now queen takes B4. Seems like black is just fine. The question is, how many games are this series? It's first to 4.5. So I guess that's what? 8 games, unless it's 4-4 then, after which they keep playing. Queen b4. Yeah, black is fine now. c3 played. The queen will get back to b6. Keep an eye on b3. You can't take on a4 because of rook a1, capturing the queen. But I'm pretty confident Magnus will spot that. However, he does not go back to b6. He goes to e7. Maybe hinting at knight to h4, which Wesley tries to stop by going queen to c2. So after knight h4, he could have taken on h7. Carlsen goes bishop g6 once again, saying, but I would like to play knight h4. Wesley plays g3, saying, no, sir. Carlsen castles, says, all right. I'll switch plans then. Well, c5. Pretty standard structure now, where black should be okay. If bishop f5, bishop f5, this knight gains access to the beautiful d4 square. The black bishop is also reasonably active. And if white doesn't exchange the horse, it will be hard to even gain control over this square. Curious if Magnus will play knight e7 and say, let's exchange bishops. And then I'll come after your knight later. Or if he will maintain the tension there. It's going to be interesting to see. For students of structure. Yeah, he goes knight e7. Does not want to deal with this knight, which he can't challenge. Well, now the knight enters d4, but it can always be challenged by the black horsey. Queen b5, you can either capture, then after ab, this knight would stick around, but the white structure would lose a lot of flexibility. You can also play rook fc8, just keeping the option to go knight c6 in the distant future, the year 2000. So far, Magnus just looks great shape today. Seems inspired by Ernest. Or maybe it's just decent at chess, but I would think it's the hotel room in the Grand Hotel La Perla. d4. This knight had to vacate the d4 square because the enemy knight was there. Gains access to the d6 square, which is nice, however. Rook d1, a little Zwischenzug by Wesley, saying, I do not have to capture just yet. We'll see how Magnus reacts. Rook d8 comes to mind. Like b4 doesn't seem to do much then. There's just rook takes c3. But that's how he does it. I guess takes, and if bc, that's what I was trying to calculate, obviously. Unsuccessfully, knight d5, c4, knight b6. It could be okay. If the knight takes, yeah, that's what Wesley does. Then at least there's no knight d6 to worry about. You can go whatever, rook c8. Shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, rook d7. Do you go b6 here? I guess you can go b6. Rook b7, rook c6. Keep the pawn. Then look for counterplay with g5. King g7, king g6 would be the typical breaker of chains here. Mother of dragons. Rook d6 played. Not sure if you want rook c6, I guess. The knight ending is fine. Could also look for counterplay once again. If you go g5, yeah, he goes rook c6. Now at least the king comes very quickly. Maybe Wesley with some chances here. The king rushing. Carlsen also sending his king over. King c4. Thing with g5 is now it doesn't create that much play at knight e4. It's weakening his own chain as well. So it seems like Carlsen is going for a sit and wait approach. But as you can see by the engine bar, engine not a big fan. And Wesley Soul's a great technician. Probably smelling it a little bit here. King a6, followed by knight b5, giving up a bit of ground. Now f6, and the engine is changing its allegiance. said black was better there for a while. Knight g6. Does he want knight g7? Yeah, knight g7. Check and knight d3. Is it all gonna peter out? Pawns get exchanged. The white king no longer that active. I mean, it attacks the pawn, but the black king is close to the center. So it doesn't look like Magnus in any trouble here anymore. Bunch of questions where Magnus is right now. He's in Pamplona in the Grand Hotel La Perla, where he is single-handedly replacing the annual bull riding tradition by playing chess. So he's in the Hemingway suite, the place where Hemingway wrote his famed novel about bullfighting. Can't quite recall the name of it. Probably Chet knows. And so far he's crushing it. He's winning now. 96, how do you win? King d6. He's gonna make a draw. He's gonna make a draw. Computer said he was winning. His face says, yeah, I don't know. But I'm up 3-0. Why gamble here? Knight e6, threefold repetition. Compy, how do you win here? King d5, computer says. Knight c7. Still makes sense. Back, knight e6, king d6. They had this, knight g7. Now knight g1. Okay, then you have to know you win this race, which according to the comp you do. But Magnus, not a computer, wasn't sure. Fair enough. 3.5 half lead for the world champion, who goes for the Spanish again. And Wesley saying, you know what? Down 3.5 half, I'll play the Berlin. Let's play a quiet game. And then I'll take my chances in my remaining. It's not just one white game, unfortunately. Even if he wins the next white game, there's still black games to come. But yeah, Wesley. Happy with the draw here. Maybe also thinking, not my day today. Let's end this one quickly. So 4-1 for the world champion. And will this be the last game of the semifinals? If Magnus does not lose this very game that's about to begin, he moves on to the finals, where he would face Levon Aronian, who recently eliminated him from the Champions Chess Tour. Could gain his revenge. But, of course, first, he has to wrap this match up. Wesley is playing his trusted d4, e5 line, which he's used many a time against Magnus. Usually giving Magnus some trouble by playing a fresh move somewhere out here after bishop g4, h3, bishop h5. This is the main line once again. Now he's probably counting on Magnus, having forgotten what to do in the very main line. At this point, he has not used this line in the Champions Chess Tour, where he's recently experimented with other things like rook to c1, queen to b3, queen c2 without h3, bishop h5. This has turned out to be a very fruitful battleground for Wesley. So usually getting good positions. And even this one, I think, is supposed to be somewhat better for white. Rook a8, you can go 95, and after takes, bishop takes. White is a teeny tiny bit better in this one as well. But Magnus seems to be cool, calm, and collected today. I would not bet against him, even in this very game. Virginia saying, beautiful name again. Jan, the score is wrong. I know, it's 4-1. Therefore, if Magnus does not lose this game, He's through. That last game probably ended so quickly that the score makers did not have time to update it. Carlsen. Going for the queen exchange. Rook e7, rook f7. White, I guess, should be slightly better with these double pawns here. But in blitz, black position actually feels somewhat easier to play. You put rook on e8, you go b5. And you tell Wesley to do his worst. I would guess. Magnus wraps it up right here, right now. Rook e7, bishop d3. The king has to cover the pawn. g3. Wesley's a great technician, though. He will just, quietly improve his position here. King g2, h4, rook h1. Do the business. Rook e1. Exchanging a bunch of rooks. The bishop gets out of the way. Preparing. Further pawn pushes. a4. I guess you go a5 anyway. A, B, C, B, he doesn't mind. Then his pawn is already closer to coronation. a5 played. Yeah, Magnus. Not gonna lose today. Bishop g5 played. Question is when b takes a4 becomes a topic. Magnus doesn't do it yet. He takes now rook a2. How does this go? a3 or takes first rook a2. Now black doesn't need a3. Now I could just bring the king as well. Yeah, brings the king. Yeah, white cannot win this. The black pawns look horrible after rook a4, king d5, let's say. If we count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, currently 6 isolated pawns. But the key factor is that these guys form a nice little jail for the white rook. Black has rook b8. The white pawns aren't really running fast. This is a passed pawn. Black is just not worse here. Now rook a8 supporting the a-pawn's run. Nice play by the world champion, yet again. Bishop e7, a4, then bishop d6 will come. Just can't win this. Here's bishop d6. Takes a3, king d5, c5. There is just no way to win this position, ladies and gentlemen. And Wesley needs to win. So Magnus doesn't even have to concern himself with creating winning chances. Doomsday is saying, is Magnus also commentating his POV somewhere? I don't know. If you observe his mouth very closely for the next 2-3 minutes, maybe that will give you a hint. Pawn to a3. Yeah. There's no particular progress to be made for white. I'm not sure if the position is objectively losing for white. but doesn't really matter in this situation. Because Wesley needs a victory. The engine is saying now after g4. That black is actually winning. Guess this is the plan. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. Rook a1, I can tie down the rook even further with a2. But Magnus feels no particular need. Just brings the king. And now he could push a2, or he could repeat moves, which also wins him the match. And as we say, a good bull never jumps any higher. Now that's not the saying. The German saying is a good horse never jumps any higher than he has to. Magnus Carlsen draws this game from the position of strength and wins the match 4.5, 1.5. Quite a clinic by the world champion, crushing Wesley So here and making it all the way to the finals. We'll see if Magnus will join all the way from Pamplona. And there we see the world champion in his beautiful hotel room. Magnus, congratulations. I can hear you clicking, so I'm guessing you're not muted.
Yeah, I can hear it now. I just turned on the sound.
Congrats! That looked smooth.
Yeah, I would say the first game was a little bit iffy. At points, I'm sure I probably could have won earlier. But yeah, in general, that was a very, very good match.
Do you feel it's just day by day with Wesley having an off day today, you having a better day, or what are the factors that sometimes it looks so great and sometimes it's much tougher?
Yeah, well, first of all, I guess it was pretty early for him today, at least compared to yesterday. And secondly, yeah, I slept 11 hours. I felt very, 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 very fresh today.
Oh, great job. So we'll see you again in the finals at 7 p.m. That's in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Against Levon. Give me a quick finals predictions for your match, for football, for NBA finals. Who's going to win everything?
I think England, the Bucks, and myself are going to win. Excellent.
Looking forward to all the action. Thank you so much, Magnus. We'll see you again in roughly 2 hours.
Thank you.
All right. That was the world champion, Magnus Carlsen, having a good time in Pamplona, making the finals. We'll be here to watch it at 7 p.m. Central European time, which is in 2 hours, 15 minutes. If you guys want to check that out, there might be some other chess to watch right here, right now. If you need something to fill the breaks, I'll be back with the finals, Levon Aronian versus the world champion, Magnus Carlsen. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Want to raise your chess to a new level? Challenge Yourself is an exclusive, innovative experience designed for Chess24 Premium members. Train like a champ with a unique set of lessons prepared by the coaches of the challengers. Boris Girlfriend and Co. will help you improve your chess. Play versus a champ. Play a Grandmaster each day in Banter Blitz. Take advantage of this incredible opportunity from June 10th. Go Premium and challenge yourself.